Hey, what's going on, guys? Kalamazi here, and this evening I want to talk to you all a little bit about patch 10.0.7 Warlock stuff, I guess Warlock damage, currently on PTR. Affliction, pretty decent buffs. Destro, pretty decent buffs. Or I guess a decent buff with Incinerate in the class tree, but it still means a decent bit of damage. Demonology, some decent buffs, decent changes and all that, so I want to look at them tonight in damage testing, in single target, maybe a little bit of AOE for Demo and Destro. We'll look at AF for sure. We've been getting a lot of questions over the past few days about, we've talked about the new talents, but how they look in combat. So, tonight, I want to show you all that. Now, quick shameless plugs here as always, Week Wars, add-ons, profiles, links to Twitch and Discord down below, where they're all for free for you guys, and as always, I want to give a big shout out to my patrons as well. Thank you for all support on Patreon, guys, a million times. Really appreciate it. If you're looking at supporting on Patreon, it should be a link up here as well as down below. So let's just jump into it. With the first spec being the best spec, Destruction. See, I threw you off for a curveball saying Destro is the best spec. I mean, I feel like I haven't given Destro enough credit over the past few months and things, and people keep saying that I don't like Destro, this and that. It's not that I don't like Destro, it's fine. It's just, it's the same spec it's been for 8 years, which is fine, once again, but there haven't really been a whole lot of large changes to Destro. As much as I like every Warlock spec, if they're buffing an ability by 5%, it's not really worth making a whole damage testing section on. But AF and Demo have received pretty big changes. Nonetheless, though, I do think that Demo and AF got the majority of the focus when it came to the buffs that came in a few days ago. But honestly, this talent right here, a 10% buff to Incinerate, is actually pretty wild for Destruction, because Destro already cranks. You've already got so many Incinerate damage amps. Roaring Blaze, Burn to Ashes, what else? I just abilities that build upon Incinerate in general. Just Incinerate does a lot of damage for Destro in general, and adding 10% more on top of that makes things pretty interesting, because Incinerate and Chaos Bolt they're pretty close to one another when it comes to single target breakdowns. And I haven't had Incinerate overtake Chaos Bolt as far as max crits were concerned, I guess are concerned, until now. So let's jump right into it. This is going to be like this is the single target build I'm sort of playing on retail. If I'm playing retail, Destro stuff in single targets, down to Soulfire, Decimation, no Ruin, just sack, all that kind of stuff. Let me pull a pet out here. There are 10,000 Ret Paladins on PTR right now testing out things. I'm probably the only Warlock, but hey, we'll make it work. So, stack our pet. We're going to cast our Soulfire to kickstart our damage here. I'm going to get this up over here a little bit. We're going to kickstart our damage here. Kickstarting. Hell yeah. Putting the Infernal down. Conflict rate, just begin the Chaos Bolt spam. There's not really a whole lot else to it. Not much has really changed with Destro for the most part. RNG is RNG. At times you overcap on shards in the opener. Now, they did indeed buff Burn to Ashes to 6 stacks max. It's bugged. Here's my BTA tracker. It doesn't go past 4. So it's bugged. It doesn't go to 6 at this point. But even with that being the case, I don't think the buff to Burn to Ashes really matters much, because if you look over logs, whether it's Kurog or Terros or any fight you're playing Destro on, you pretty much maintain nearly a permanent Burn to Ashes effect over the course of the fight. Whether it's, at 2 stacks or 3 stacks or 4 stacks or 1 stack, it doesn't matter. As long as you have a stack of Burn to Ashes and you're casting an Incinerate, as long as an Incinerate is buffed by Burn to Ashes, it doesn't matter. Like if it's 1 stack or 4 stacks, because it's the same damage amp across the board. Let me actually kickstart here again and mess that up. No big deal. It's the same damage amp across the board. Right? Not a whole lot really changes there. So I'm not sure if the Burn to Ashes change, making it 6 stacks max, is sort of like a, hey, we know this is a problem. We're just going to sort of maybe try and band-aid fix this a little bit until 10.1 hits. Maybe just readdress the talent, look at making it a bit different. I really don't know. I'm not sure. But the Burn to Ashes change really shouldn't amount to much. If you're in a spot where BTA drops for whatever reason, yeah, it might be some value for you. But overall, I don't think it's going to be that impactful. But notice here, we are sustaining about 95k. We're not an execute here. Destro does a lot of single target damage. It's currently the highest simming spec for me on retail by a substantial margin. Not a whole lot really changed there going into, well, I guess comparatively to Demonology, Destro's still better in 10.0.7 by a decent margin. Let me Soulfire here. Give me one big crit. Maybe a big crit, maybe possibly. Sad day. But either way, I mean, we can just stop here. But damage breakdown wise, I want to point out Chaos Bolts versus Incinerates here. So Chaos Bolt sitting about 35%, max crit being 146k, Incinerate 138k. I've had 155 plus k Incinerate crits. It's actually pretty insane. Now, once again, like, just because Incinerate's critting harder than Chaos Bolt doesn't mean that it's OP or anything. I mean, Chaos Bolt always crits. if you're playing Chaos Incarnate, you're always getting max mastery to Chaos Bolt. Now, some say that Chaos Bolt should hit harder than this, or should be more disparity between the two. I don't necessarily disagree. I don't think this is a bad damage profile. Chaos Bolt maybe could hit a bit harder, but at the same time, I'm not sure if it's a matter of Chaos Bolt hitting harder or Incinerate maybe hitting harder than it should. I wouldn't mind if they shift the damage away from Incinerate to Chaos Bolt more in, I guess, 10.1 or at some point in 10.0.7. But either way, the same thing that's going on in retail is still happening in 0.7. Incinerate was buffed. Destro's still doing good single target damage, good 2-target damage. One thing to point out here as well, Fel Barrage. This is Inquisitor's Gaze, doing about 5.2% of our damage, and there's a lot of RNG to this ability. So pulling it up here, if you can see, maybe we can't, might have bugged up. Either way, I've seen 7%, 8%, I've seen 2% for Fel Barrage. So it's still an RNG effect, it still procs randomly, but there's times where it procs back to back to back and does a lot of damage, and there's times it doesn't proc at all and does very little damage. So not a whole lot's changed with Destro. It's the same in AOE, still good in these large, heavy like pull-based dungeons like Alcathar's Academy, not good offensive with Inferno build. Single target's good. It's a bit better with Incinerate buffs. And yeah, let's hope that in 10.1 there are more fights designed to fit Destro's damage profile. Let's take a look at Demonology and the Reign of Tyranny buffs. Alrighty, so when it comes to Demonology and like single target testing or single target-esque settings, this is the Nether Portal Cleave build. Now, it's important to note we are playing Vile Fiend here over Demonic Calling. I know Vile Fiend's miserable to play with, I get it, I'm in the same boat, I agree, but Reign of Tyranny gets 3 stacks of Demonic Servitude from Vile Fiend and from Grimoire plus Dogs. So Vile Fiend is basically equal to a 3-shard hand to Gul'dan cast for raw Tyrant power, plus with the recent buffs that it got, it's not that bad of an option. Now, this is not the pure single target build. If you want to play that, you can play Fel Covenant, and Sack Souls, all that stuff. I haven't played with it I played with it a little bit. Yes, Soul Empower was buffed a bit, but if you're playing single target, you're playing Destro Wrath at this point. Demonology is still pretty far behind. And even if Demonology was like the best option by 1,000 DPS or so over Destro Wrath, the build you play is like brain surgery in space. It's not fun. It's not very fun at all with Fel Covenant and Sack Souls, watching all these buffs and things. Fel Covenant needs to change in 10.1. But we'll get across that bridge when we get to it. So either way, test this out. For what it's worth, we tested Umbra Blaze. It's very, very undertuned. It's probably a placeholder value for now. Hopefully it gets buffed in the near future, but it was doing like 0.4% of my damage, like 0.4. It was not good at all. So I think it's a cool ability. I'm happy to have it back, but needs to be buffed properly. But either way, let's get into it. So one thing to make note of here, we're not playing Immutable Hatred. We'll test it again after this test here. Keep an eye on Legion Strike damage from our Felguard in single target in this test here, and we'll compare it to the damage it does with Immutable Hatred. So we're going in here. Power Siphon, just opening up Pray for no bugs. Shadow Bolt, no bug. Yes, sir, let's do it. So we're going to Portal. Soulburn, Grimoire, we're going to cast Vile Fiend. Dogs, didn't get a proc, it's okay. Hand Bolt. Hand Bolt. I'm going to tire it a little early, why not? Do it now. Trinket. Hand. Well, Demonic Strength. And so when it comes to playing this build, your opener is still, like, raw damage-wise, very, very high. Pit Lord, Tyrant, Reign of Tyranny. Look at Tyrant. Look at him go. Look at the damage he puts out. It's pretty wild. The Pit Lord's doing a lot of damage here, too. Look at the Tyrant go, 614k, I'm going to implode here roughly. Like, your burst is still really high. I've seen 700k Tyrants too. The Pit Lord had 40% crit there. Not too bad either. Tyrant does a good bit of damage when you cast it. It's sort of how like old Decon used to be. Now, we don't have Minute Tyrant with Decon, hopefully yet is the word I could use there. We'll see what happens in 10.1. But Tyrant with Reign of Tyranny does indeed do damage once again. Now, as we all know, it's a minute and a half and not 1 minute. So it does make things a little awkward when it comes to like casting Tyrants. Number one, due to just having it be a minute cooldown for the past 5 years, breaking the habit of setting up Tyrant a bit earlier. It took me a few pulls to get that down too. But I'll make note of it here. So basically, we have about 20-ish seconds left here in this, 25. This is the last set of dogs we're going to cast here though. So we have 17 on Vile Fiend here. We're just going to keep casting like this, keep filling with hands, all that. We're probably going to siphon in a minute here, maybe. Possibly. Cast a Bolt. And we'll Siphon. We're going to begin Tyrant setup after this next hand Bolt cast. Probably because we have Vile Fiend coming up about now. I'm going to cast a Bolt here and be a little greedy. It's fine. So Vile Fiend. Shadow Bolt. Dogs. I'm going to Bolt and be a little greedy. It's no big deal. Hand. We got lucky. Bolt. Hand. Bolt. Hand, we're going to Trinket, and we're going to Tyrant. I also hate how Grimoire is 8 seconds off from being cast here. So we're going to hold it for a literal minute and a half again because we were 10 seconds off the cooldown. But if you hold your Tyrant, it messes up portal timings, excuse me, and things too. So either way, we're sitting at about 70k here, which if you think back to how Destro was sitting at like 85, 90k plus at this point. Demonology playing this build is still a good bit behind Destro. Spoilers ahead, even playing the pure single target build of Demonology, cast Battlefield and cooldown here, with like Fel Covenant and things, it's still a good bit behind Destro and Aff. So either way, look at our damage breakdown here currently. So Tyrant sitting at about 11%. Wild Imp's doing a lot of raw damage here from the Clash Tree talent they got this build, plus the buff they got 2 weeks ago. Imps are a large portion of your damage again. Tyrant being about 10.8% here. We have Fel Barrage, the Eyeball, being about 3.7. Interestingly enough, not as high as it was before. Legion Strike, about 4%. Keep that in mind. That's very important to keep in mind for whenever we test the Immutable Hatred build out in a minute here. So we have Portal up now. We're going to start casting it in 1 sec here. I'm going to cast one more hand, build back here. One more hand. We're a little off Vile Fiend, Shadow Bolt, and we begin Portal setup. So we're going to open the portal. Soulburn, Grimoire. We're going to go Vile Fiend, Bolt, Dogs, Hand, Bolt, Hand. Just going to Tyrant now. Trinket. We're going to go Hand, and couldn't fit the last hand in there, but no big deal. Either way, damage looking pretty subpar here. Tyrant coming out again with Pit Lord, both rising in damage here. Tyrant not being as strong as it used to be in like raw damage, obviously. It's still good, but not 20% like Decon was and stuff. We did Implode in second tier as well. Pit Lord sitting around 5.5%, usual for second portal ending roughly. We'll call it 70k for Demonology, right? Legion Strike being about 3.5, 3.6%, Demon Fire being about 11. So Tyrant's doing damage again, right? It's not doing, 20% anymore. It's not doing, this amount anymore either. It's there with the recent buffs and the new change, adding 50% damage to the actual ability itself whenever you're playing the ability. It's not too bad. It looks to be the better choice in single target. But let's keep 70k in mind. Coming out of second portal, and let's look at a different build playing Immutable Hatred. Alright, so this is not the current build I'm playing. I'm waiting for Portal to come off CD here, but Immutable Hatred, we'll swap to it in a second here. This is a new talent. They did indeed buff Guillotine a good bit before I look at Destro or Demo AOE in a minute here. Immutable Hatred. So this is a substantial single target increase to this talent node and this side of the tree in general. When your primary Felguard's Legion Strike damages only one target, it increases Legion Strike's damage by 120%. Your primary Felguard deals 4k physical damage after auto-attacking the same enemy 3 times. Now, that damage event is called Immutable Hatred in details. We'll look at it in a minute here. But this ability has been surprisingly really strong, to the point where I'm a little curious. Where does this point go? I'm not even sure where this point goes anymore. I'm a little curious. Where do you put this point? Here, calling. Sure, why not? Sure, maybe you play Portal. I don't know. This is fine. I've been surprised at how strong Immutable Hatred's been. You probably put it in like Fel Sunder or something too. This is all fine. It's okay. We're just testing things out, right? Now, we're going to open up here. We are not playing another Portal, so the opener is going to be a little different. Keep in mind, like, Demo ended its last test with another Portal at like, what, 70k, roughly, at like 3-minute mark. We're not like, I'm not trying to break everything down to like an actual T and find out what is exactly like the best overall damage put out right now. That'll be a sim thing whenever tuning is done. And I mean, I would assume you'll see AF in a little bit, but I would assume tuning is probably going to happen to a certain extent at some point. We're going to go like this. Just one more Shadow Bolt in hand. It's fine. Trinket, Tyrant, Strength, and here we go. Now, the big thing with this build, Nether Portal burst like 120k or so. This build's not going to burst that high. Watch Tyrant jump in value here with Reign of Tyranny, but it's not going to be 120k. We're hitting 90k, maybe 95k roughly, but you don't have that huge Nether Portal Tyrant damage, right? So positive, hey, I mean, it's more consistent damage because you're not waiting on a major CD every 3 minutes. Your Felguard straight up just does more damage. I mean, where's Legion Strike at here, right? So there's both a Grimoire and an actual Felguard in here. Let me cast this Vile Fiend first. So Grimoire Felguard, what the tooltip says on Immutable Hatred is not affected by the talent itself. It's just your own actual Felguard, like Judhun, my current pet, right? But look at Legion Strike, 7.4% and probably still climbing, 7.6. it's actually really strong. Looking at how it was with Portal, it was doing like 3.7, 3.8k. It's doing 8% of my damage. Look at Immutable Hatred. A separate damage event from the same talent is doing 2% of my damage, 2.2. This ability is actually really strong, and like quite possibly, depending on where tuning goes, this build has the potential to be like the better build for single target demo, depending where tuning ends. Because I'm gonna hold this here, depending where tuning goes, because it might not be as strong as, hey, ripping a huge portal on pole, but it's more consistent, right? This is about where our damage was when we were Tyranting again. As another portal Demonology. We're gonna go in here, one more hand, we'll Trinket, we'll Tyrant, Strength, and once again, we're at 70k. This is very similar to another portal, the test we just had, right? Tyrant, climbing, 11.3, 11.7. Imps still doing 14%. They're still a very large portion of our damage. And look at Immutable Hatred, sitting here at 2.2. Legion Strike, 7.8%. This build is strong. And it's just passive, consistent cleave. It feels a lot like how Shadowlands demo felt. You just cast pets. You cast pets, they do damage. Like Tyrant does good damage with Decon, now Reign of Tyranny. I do still hope that they end up desyncing, you know, GWD and Reign of Tyranny in 10.1. But this build's doing 75k roughly, right? We'll wait another 48-ish here to see where it's sitting, because Nether Portal build was about 3.5 minute test here. But this build's been surprisingly very consistent. Immutable Hatred's, it's a cool ability. It's fun. I mean, your Felguard's just crushing everything, right? But it's only good in single target. If you factor in a second target, you don't get the effects Legion Strike, you don't get the 3 consecutive damage hits. It's like your patchwork alternative option on the right side of the tree. Because if you weren't playing Portal, even currently on retail right now, if you're not playing another Portal, you're doing basically very little single target damage, or nowhere near what you could do, I should say, as Demonology, right? So we're already sitting at 70k here, but we're just gonna pop CDs anyways and see where we can land. So we'll do this, we'll cast Dogs, a couple hands here, we'll hand again. And once again, important to keep in mind, RNG is RNG with Demo. At times you get instant cast Hand to Gul'dans, at times you get, you know, good refunds. This might have been a bit better refund-wise. We're literally sitting at what we were sitting at last time when Portal ended. Like, this build is just straight up putting out more damage anyways, right? So we'll see where Sims go, but I'm not saying this is the end-all be-all. But keep in mind, once again, Nether Portal ended at 70k roughly. This is 77k, right? If you don't like Nether Portal, there might be hope for you. And look at Legion Strike, 7.7%. Immutable Hatred, 2.4%. Now, it's doing about, like, 3.5% without the talent. So it's like, what? Roughly a 3.5 plus 2.5, like a 6.5% difference playing a talent. It's pretty wild. So we'll see where it goes. More consistent damage. And honestly, like, the same time, even if this build's relatively competitive or pretty close to Portal, probably just play this anyways, because there's no brain surgery in space setting up a portal on the move in the middle of Razagath or whatever fight you're doing. Alright, so looking briefly at Demonology and AOE, we are going to play Summon Soulkeeper here. We're waiting for it to get to 10 stacks here, good lord. I will say off the bat that testing Summon Soulkeeper on dummies is very hard to do, because whenever a mob dies, you get stacks of Soulkeeper. Mobs aren't dying on dummies. So I'm going to put it down at 10 stacks. You guys can see how much damage it does. It does a decent bit of damage. Chances are pretty high it's worth playing at AoE now compared to Inquisitor's Gaze. But at the same time, Inquisitor's Gaze with the right RNG can do a lot in single target. So we'll see what happens. My hair is actually looking terrible. I didn't realize it until now, but either way. So the big thing here, Guillotine has been buffed by 200% damage, and it now lasts 6 seconds, down from 8 seconds. It's still a ground-placed effect, unfortunately, but it is what it is. It's a much larger amount of damage in a shorter time frame. So still solid overall, still good. It's going to be worth hitting now. Once again, it shares a note with Immutable Hatred here. Immutable Hatred only really good in single target, but just to hit on this again, I love how this talent actually gives this side of the tree a single target identity. Because if you weren't over here as Demo, your single target was not very good. Now, once again, Demo is still the worst spec in single target by tens of thousands of DPS, at least 10k, but hey, you know, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. Some point. So yeah, but we're at 8 stacks, good enough. So let's get ready to go. So wait for an imp to spawn. The opener might not be incredible, but you know what, it's fine. We're gonna siphon. Let's say we're going into a pack. Start casting some bolts here. Get in there, big dog. There we go. We're gonna go just Grimoire. We're gonna cast some dogs. Just build some imps here. Hand, Shadow Bolt, hand. One more hand here for the robe. Why not? Just a little early here. We'll Tyrant. We will Demonic Strength, put the cage down now at 10 stacks. There it is. I'm going to Guillotine in a second here and watch the damage. So there's that. There's the Guillotine down. Fellstorm doing a lot from Felguards here. Look at Fell Explosion rising from Guillotine. Fell Explosion, Guillotine doing a good bit of damage. There's Soulkeeper as well. We're going to implode here. It's not too shabby, right? Keep in mind, Guillotine's a 45-second cooldown, and doing 8.5% of my damage, that's not too bad, right? Soulkeeper is sitting at 4% here as well, and like I said, it's really hard to sort of judge how good Soulkeeper is because of, once again, just like, and plus, things are dying constantly. You're constantly rolling multiple stacks of Soulkeeper, right? Every pack you have 10 stacks, you're ready to go in, slam it. I can't slam it again here, but in plus, I'd be slamming it again typically at 8, 9, 10 stacks here. So we'll wait for Guillotine one more time here. It's up now. He's Fellstorming, so I'll do this, cast a Shadow Bolt, let's go Implosion, put a Guillotine down once again, and watch Fell Explosion rise. Fell Explosion, Fell Explosion. And also, it's not just Fell Explosion. It's also Fiendish Wrath, so it certainly looks to be worth it in AOE. If you're going that far down to that actual node, is it like utterly insane like how Soulkeeper was, you know, a month or so ago before they nerfed it on PTR? No, but it's worth it in AOE. In mass AOE, looks to be worth. This is also only 5 targets. If you get 6, 7, 8 mobs factored in, it's doing even more. 7.7% plus 2%, looking at about 10% roughly. It's considerably better than where it was previously. Dogs are doing a lot, Implosions are doing a lot, Fellstorms are doing a lot as well, but Demo AOE, not looking that bad. It's about the same where it is on retail, like playstyle wise, barring, you know, hitting Soulkeeper, but things just hit harder. Demo has that really good single target profile, I guess like stacked cleave profile. Baseline Handy Golden, obviously, essentially baseline Implosion, Demonic Strength, Fellstorm Cleave, Dogs Cleaving, a good priority package built into a solid just AOE profile as well. Demo, still looking good in 0.7. We'll see where it all goes. All right, so Affliction single target. Now, there's been a handful of changes to the AF's talent tree, which this is mostly the same build you're playing on retail talent node-wise. Zapian Teachings is gone. We have baseline instant cast Corruption, which is great. Rather than Agony is gone there. Instead, at a rank 1 trait, they've added Kindled Malice. Malefic Rapture and Seed of Corruption deal 16% more damage, and also Dark Virtuosity. Shadow Bolt and Drain Soul deal 30% more damage. Now, on top of that, you also have 2 nodes over here being Sargerai Technique. Shadow Bolt and Drain Soul deal 15% more damage, so essentially 45% more damage from Drain Soul here, right? And Sakrathar's Guile, Agony doing more damage. Now, everything else, mostly the same talent-wise, but they have changed Dark Lair a bit. So, an unmentioned change in their blue post, they buffed Dark Lair's baseline spell power damage to I-Beam. I'm not talking about the 25%, you know, effect here in this tooltip. It was like 35%, it went to like 56%. So I-Beam on its own does more damage. Now on top of that, they also changed Dark Lair to get a 25% damage increase per dot effective you have on your current target. It no longer harvests resources in a sense from surrounding targets. Previously, if you had like 10 dots up, if you had like 4 targets with 2 dots each on them, it would be 4 times, you know, it'd be 80%, right? 80%, it was 10% per dot active anywhere, right? On whatever mob it was hitting. So an 80% increase to I-Beam on that target the Dark Lair's attacking. Now, in that same scenario, it only calculates damage on the target that it's hitting. So, if you have a target with Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, UA, Singularity, maybe Soul Rot on it, that is a 125% damage increase on the target that Dark Lair's hitting, right? But if there are other mobs around them that have dots on them as well, their dots don't count towards I-Beam anymore. It's only the target you cast Dark Lair on. It counts the dots on that target. So I'd assume Dark Lair is probably better than Soul Rot when it comes to the question of do you play Dark Lair or Soul Rot. I've seen Sims with a build playing just Soul Rot, Dark Lair, and these 2 rows here, no crescendo. We'll see where that goes, but we're playing Soul Rot or Siphon Life, Vile Taint. Dread Touch is indeed 8 seconds long now. Keep that in mind, from 6 seconds on retail. Sack our pet here, and let's just get into it. So we're going to open up on a precast Haunt here into an Unstable Affliction, Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, Drain to 3 stacks of Shadow's Embrace, 2, 3, cast this, hit our Trinket, we're going to Dark Lair, we're going to Rapture 4 times, 1, and watch our damage here, 2, 3. There's Dread Touch, cast a Drain Soul briefly, cast this to refresh Haunt. And our damage is rising pretty rapidly here. 89k, 90k. I'm probably going to Rapture again in a second tier roughly. Rapture about now. Refresh the UA. We're at about 100k roughly. We're not even in Execute. Affliction can put out a serious amount of single target. And the cool thing is, like, we had no procs from our 2-piece, 4-piece, and our opener there. We had actually none. So we're going to refresh Dread Touch there. Battle Taint again here. Rapture a few times. Rapture. Rapture. One for the road. Why not? Cast it. Cast the UA, drain a little bit here, catch the Corruption, Haunt, Siphon Life, catch the Dread Touch. I will say the Dread Touch playstyle feels much, much better at 8 seconds. Like, we knew it probably would, all the above, right? But it does feel much better. And not even just the Dread Touch playstyle, but also the Vile Taint playstyle of playing that in single target. That also feels a lot better because I probably should cast Drain Life here. That also feels a lot better because you're not just running on fumes looking to refresh Dread Touch after casting a Vile Taint. So, feels pretty good. It's sitting at about 86k, and once again, we're not in Execute. I didn't pot here. I didn't drums or anything. AF can put out a substantial amount of single target. I've seen AF putting out upwards of 95k in single target too as well. It's this might even be one of the lower tests that I've seen AF do in pure single target. But I just can't drive home the fact of how good it feels having 8-second Dread Touch, right? At times you get multiple procs in your opener from 2-piece, 4-piece, which greatly inflates your burst damage. At times you don't, and it's like, all right, well, you know, it is what it is. But just the spec feels better. I'm still not a huge fan of, like, just maintenance buffs in general, but hey, comparatively to where it was at, I'll take it. We have Dark Lair up again in about 10 seconds here, so we'll hold off on that. Cast a Dread Touch there. Catch this UA, catch this Corruption, Dread Touch again right here, where that falls, dump this. Catch our Haunt, and Siphon Life, why not? We'll Vile Taint, we'll Dark Lair, and we will begin spamming Rapture again. Rapture, Rapture. I'm going to Drain here. If I got my Trinket, we'll pop it now, why not? Sure. I don't typically play the Trinket in AF single target, but hey, you know, do it to it. And once again, this mob's not even in Execute range. If it's in Execute range, Drain Soul's hitting a lot harder, and we're at 90k, which is about where Destra was, with bad procs in our opener. Not like the best refund RNG, no potions, no lust, nothing, right? And once again, also no Execute. So Drain Soul sitting at about 8%. In Execute, it's about 16, 17. I've seen like 20% as well with good crits deep into Execute. Yeah, I wish I could push this. I wish I could push this dummy lower, but I can't get any lower. Fell Barrage, the eyeball, doing a lot of damage. Haunt, Shadow's Embrace increase the damage of everything, right? So Fell Barrage from our eyeball is literally doing 7% of our damage. Where'd it go? 7% roughly? I hate when it does this. There we go. Killing me detail. 7% here. Dots being about here. Dark Lair being about 4% roughly. Rapture being 24.8. A max Rapture of 182,000. And that's without playing Soul Rot. You factor in Soul Rot to this equation, you're looking at 220, 230k Soul Rapture crits. It's hitting hard. So F in single target, looking good. It definitely has the upside when it comes to Destro in the mobility department as well as Execute department. This is actually one of the lower tests that I've seen for AF in single target. But before we go, let's take a look at AF in AOE. Okay, so Affliction AOE, or I guess plus build, however you want to look at it. This build does differ a bit from what we've played, I guess, sort of recently in plus. It's AF on retail. We're not playing this row anymore. I think with Kindled Malice, plus Sohira Technique, plus Alcathar's Guile, and just the current state of AF, you can play Siphon Life. You probably want to now in plus as well. We'll get to that in a minute. Plus Vile Taint being better in single target. I don't think it's really needed anymore when it comes to single target and plus. Now, we'll see where that lands long term. We're playing Soul Rot Row into Gluttony and the Dark Harvest. I think this still needs to be buffed to 5%. I'm not changing my stance on that, but still fine. Okay to play here. Dark Lair, Visionary, Grim Reach. Now, once again, Dark Lair's baseline Eye Beam damage was buffed. I'm not talking about the percent here being 30%. The baseline damage you can't see, the Spell Power modifier, was buffed in addition to them increasing the percent here that it does additionally to Eye Beam per dot on your target, right? So the mathematical changes, whatever. Grim Reach is still good. TLDR, you'll see, it's still good. The one big thing here, so it's not harvesting dots or taking dots into account on other targets, right? So you're going to want to apply your Siphon Life to your main target, even in AoE. So Dark Lair takes, okay, I have Agony, Corruption, Siphon Life, UA, Vile Taint, maybe Soul Rot on that target. 6 dots, and it calculates that for all the Grim Reach AoE cleave that it does. So you want to full dot your main target while still casting a Seed and a Vile Taint and everything else, and getting the full damage amp into the Grim Reach, right? So we'll take a look. So we're going to do this. I have Soul Keeper out here. I'm not going to pot or drums or anything. I'm going to go into it. I'm not going to read out a bunch here. It won't be a long opener because I don't want to manage a million dots. You'll see what I'm talking about. So precast a Seed. We're going to go into a precast UA. Go into Vile Taint. We can haunt this thing. Put a Siphon Life up. We're going to cast Soul Rot. We're going to Trinket. We're going to Dark Glare. And watch our damage. Put down a Soul Keeper. Why not? Soul Keeper it up. Cast some Seeds. Big Forked Drain. I hit 400k on stream pretty easily. Still going here. Still going here. It is a lot of burst. I don't want to maintain a million dots here, but like it is a lot of burst, obviously, with Grim Reach, with Dark Harvest and all that. You do have or Soul Rot essentially every half a minute, depending as long as you keep your UA up on the target because of double Soul Eater's Gluttony. So you have basically every half a minute the option to go Vile Taint into Soul Rot, get Decaying Soul Satchel, whatever it's called, this thing every half a minute, Dark Harvest, and keep that decent little bit of juice rolling into more Seed cast. You have a tremendous amount of burst as Affliction with this build. Let me find the actual breakdown here. Wherever it went. I hate when Details does this. Where'd it go? There we go. So like Seed of Corruption dealt 28%. Keep in mind, we are playing a talent that buffs Seed of Corruption. Please stop changing Details. I don't like you anymore. Grim Reach did 1.5 million to 5 targets, 16%. Soul Rot about 5. Soul Keeper about 3.9%. Vile Taint 4.4. And once again, if you keep this rolling for a while and keep refreshing dots and stuff, you'll do... I mean, Seed will do a substantial amount of damage. Now, it might still struggle after that is in those 3 to 4 target scenarios a bit, but hey, a raw buff to Seed, I guess theoretically does still help in those scenarios a good bit. So, Aff's AoE, between the Dark Lair baseline I-beam damage change, and having the access to just Soul Rot, Soul Eater's Gluttony, Dark Harvest row, not having to go into this row here, did receive a decent bit of a buff, right? You're still going to want to play Siphon Life probably to apply to your main target to further amplify Grim Reach. Vile Taint's the better option, single target now anyways. Seed's still your main AoE spender and all that. And you've got Kindle Malice buffing Seed by 16 additional percent. Aff actually looks really strong. It's single target, very good. It's AoE with full CDs, very good. Even when you have Soul Rot, Dark Harvest every half minute with Vile Taint, still pretty bursty with Seed spam. The build's just solid. A lot of good damage. And honestly, it's pretty fun to play. It's not as hasty or as fast as Shadowlands was at the end with Field of Blossoms and Decaying Soul Satchel, but it's still pretty fun. It's solid. So yeah, that should wrap it up, guys. Thanks for watching. I hope this answered the question you guys might have had about how does each spec look in damage heading into 10.0.7 PTR. I would assume we're getting PTR probably in a month or so. There very well could be tuning coming still to Demo, to Destro, to Aff. I don't know, but the specs feel better. It's really cool to see Blizzard taking feedback into account, whether it's mine or somebody else's, or just looking at general problems on their own and addressing them, right? We'll see where things go. I wouldn't be surprised if Destro got some changes, maybe in next week's PTR build. I could be totally wrong. I have no idea, but it felt like Demo and Aff were the focus of this week's build. I guess this week still technically. Destro, at the same time, I don't think has some issues. Every spec in the game has issues. I think Demo and Aff had more than Destro, but Destro could see some change that could help the spec out a bit talent-wise. We talked about it in the feedback video. So whether it's a 10.0.7 thing or 10.1 thing, hopefully Destro isn't left out in the cold and receives some attention. So, but yeah, man, I mean, Aff looks good. Demo looks good. Demo still needs buffs in single target, obviously, but the stat cleave profile that it can bring with prio damage is still very strong. Reign of Tyranny is better in single target than GWD now. We'll see where it goes. They are two varying damage profiles, but I'm excited. All this is a great foundation for bigger changes, hopefully GWD in the Clash tree, to come in 10.1. So we'll see. But let me know what you guys think these builds down below in the comment section. If you have any questions, drop them in there as well, and I'll do my best to get back to you. As always, weekly Warcraft add-ons profiles offer free on Twitch and in Discord. Links to both down below. And I want to give one huge shout out, as always, my patrons for in the video. Guys, thank you for all the support on Patreon. I really appreciate it. It allows me to keep doing what I'm doing for you guys and making content, and I really appreciate it. So if you're looking at supporting on Patreon, there should be a link up here, as well as down below in the video description. And yeah, like I said, I'd assume we're about a month away or so from 10.0.7 hitting retail, and I'm also taking an educated guess here that we're going to see 10.1 PTR within 2 to 3 weeks. There's a good chance 10.0.7 is probably wrapping up on PTR, and 10.1 is coming out or already out, because we're looking at, I'd assume, about 2 months of raid testing, maybe a month and a half. But if there's 8 bosses in the raid, it could be more. I don't know. I'm taking a guess from 8 from looking at Vault. That's like 5 weeks, 5 to 6 weeks of testing of bosses. If there's more, it's 7 weeks. So we'll see what's up. But either way, things might be a little slow now, but it's going to get really busy really quickly once again. So I appreciate all the support, guys. If you enjoyed the video, hit the like and sub button below. It helps out a ton. And I will catch you all again soon on stream. Peace.